Hi and welcome back. Today something slightly different. I'm going to be painting a spooky forest for a Halloween special. I've got a piece of quarter imperial size Saunders Waterford cold pressed paper, and I've got it taped to my board and I'm wetting it all over. My board is at an angle of about 45 degrees. Now I'm going to create an underpainting for my spooky forest using lovely thick rich paint. This is raw sienna, and I'm just going to make sure I've got plenty of paint across the middle, and now I'm just going to darken up across the top and the bottom with Paynes grey, and I'm going to add in some Prussian blue as well. Now I'm not looking for anything even. What I am looking for is the whole paper to be covered with plenty of dark paint, but with that bright burnt sienna as well. Now I've just added a full brush load of water across the top to get that to run. I've tilted my board round, and really what I'm just looking for is rich colour and a nice texture. It's still lovely and wet, plenty of thick paint there, and I'm going to use plastic food wrap or cling film. I'm going to pull off quite a few large sheets, and I'm going to lay them across the painting and allow the cling film to cling onto the painting in places in sort of like jagged shapes and shards, and then we'll let the cling film dry, and it should create a wonderful pattern across the whole painting to make a nice underpainting for the spooky forest. Once I've laid on the cling film, and I like the look of the way the patterns are shaping up, because what you see there is hopefully what we'll end up with, but a slightly paler version when it dries. Just step away from it, leave it alone and allow it to completely dry. If you try to peel off the cling film before it's dry, you can run the risk of losing the pattern, because then the paint will just start to diffuse again naturally. Okay, it's completely dry, and I'm going to peel off the cling film. You can see how much paler it's dried. But you can also see there's beautiful patterns. There's sort of almost a frosty, icy look to the patterns and shapes and effects that the cling film has left on the page. If we take a closer look, then you can see all those shapes. Now I'm thinking that they hopefully will make a really nice background for our spooky forest when we start to paint in the silhouettes of trees. I'm going to mix up a lot of nice, rich but nicely flowing, inky consistency Paynes grey with perhaps a little bit of indigo or Prussian blue in it as well. And I'm going to use my, I think it's a number 2 Daler Rowney graduate rigger to paint in some mid-ground trees. The patterns that we made with the cling film will eventually, hopefully, sort of look like distant trees and twigs. So I'm just going to paint up trunks with the rigger, branches, moving my hand around so that the hairs of the rigger create nice sort of jagged, uneven, branch-shaped lines, which I'm going to pull across the masking tape so that it looks as if the trees are going outside of the frame. Once we remove the tape, it will look as if the trees exist beyond the painting rather than just plonked into the painting. Make sure your paint is nice and dark. You can go over it again if it's not dark enough, because we want these trees to stand out really nicely against the mistier, paler background. As I pull up my trunk shapes and my branches, I take the pressure off the paintbrush so that my lines taper off and become thinner towards the ends of the branches. I want to make sure that my trees don't look too even or too similar to each other. I want a nice crisscross of branches overlapping each other as well, coming out at different angles. This next tree, I've left quite a nice wide space between this one and the other two, and this helps to give the look of the forest, where the trees aren't just spaced together in a sort of a line like ornamental trees. Making the trunk a bit thicker on this one. They're all going to be winter trees. I'm not going to have leaves or anything. It's just this kind of skeleton trees. Looks spookier somehow, I think, for this Halloween special painting. I've left a wide gap there because I'm going to paint a large tree inside that gap, one that's further forward in the foreground. So I want to finish painting these mid-ground trees first, and then I'll put the larger tree in across that gap. You can put as many or as few branches in as you like. And of course, if you want to put in bats or owls or ghosts or pumpkins or a spooky castle in the background, then please do. But I think I'm just going to keep this one simple, just with the trees, because I love the effect of these stark silhouetted winter trees against the sort of interesting misty background. I'm going to be painting in some tree shadows across the ground as well, and some brambles and grasses and things like that. Right, time for the big tree. As Bob Ross would say, this is your bravery test. Put a nice thick line using a squirrel mop across for the main trunk of this foreground tree. Maybe just branch it off a bit, keeping it nice and dark. This one, especially this one, needs to be dark because it's the kind of the focal point that leads us into the rest of the picture. Change back to the rigger now and carry on putting in a few branches and just pulling down some more dark paint into that trunk. And this tree links both sides of the painting together, I think, as well. Just some sticks and twigs coming out near the base. I'll start painting in sort of brambles and undergrowth, just scribbly lines really, something and nothing, just like a tangle of wild undergrowth. Just suggestions really. You can put as much undergrowth or as little as you like, sticks, twigs, plants, bushes, things like that. But I'm using the undergrowth and the shadows to kind of join all the design together, so to speak. So I'm drawing my shadows across from the base of the trees in diagonal lines towards the bottom, just to bring this painting together. Get some thinner marks to sort of indicate the branches that come off from the trees as well. Directional shadows like this can really pull a painting together really well, especially if it's got a lot of vertical brush strokes like we have here with the tree trunks. This just kind of adds to the composition, I think, and draws the eye towards the light. I'm just painting in some shadows across the bottom right corner to indicate shadows of trees that we can't see, trees that are just outside of the frame. Just do a bit more to the undergrowth. Now I've got my shadows in place, I'm just going to paint more of these sort of scrubby branches, undergrowth and sort of thorns, brambles, dead flowers, that sort of thing. You can put as much of this as you like in, or none at all, leave it quite empty and stylised. But I think it's starting to look like a spooky forest now. Just drawing a little bit more of this undergrowth patterns across, linking together all of the trees. Now a final touch is I'm using the squirrel mop again to pull in some thick lines across the top corner and edge on the left, just to indicate a foreground tree just stretching its branches out across the picture. You can see how loosely I'm painting this one. I want this to just be like a excuse me, just like a tangle of branches from a nearby tree, which is just in front of where the viewer's standing. Change over to the rigger and put in some thinner branches. I'm coming in across the masking tape again, so that when I peel the tape off, those branches just look like they're coming in from a tree that's, again, just out of the frame. Well, I think that's about done now. Right, it's time to pull the tape off. And remember, when you're peeling masking tape off, pull it away from your painting so that if the tape was to tear the paper, it will tear away from the painting and not into it. I think that's worked out quite effectively. I'm very pleased with the way the cling film effects in the background have given us the look of lots more going on in the background, sort of the illusion of lots of distant trees and branches. If we look closely, I really like all the shapes that the cling film has left on the paper. It's a very interesting process. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks so much to my patrons for all your support, and happy Halloween. See you soon. Bye.